I think one of the most important things, differences between the kind of approach that we're proposing here and the kind of approach which is inherent in the green economy approach, is that we are talking about relationships. We believe that relationships are fundamental to everything great that humans have done. Relationships are what hold the universe together, which binds ecosystems, etc., and which build communities. Now, if you define everything on Earth as a thing, as an object, you are, which to be bought and sold, you are fundamentally constraining the nature of the discussion about the relationship that you have. You don't have a discussion, and that's why when we talk about Mother Earth, it is very significant, because you don't buy and sell your mother. And why don't you buy and sell your mother? Because you have a relationship with her. You are grateful for what your mother has done for you. You have a deep relationship of respect. So the use of the term Mother Earth is intended, it has many levels, but it is intended to denote a quality of relationship and relatedness which is fundamental to this approach. And that is not the kind of relatedness you have with a carbon credit. A carbon credit is a commodity that the language, this is the language of the oppressor that I was talking about before. So it is fundamentally important that we say very, very strongly, we cannot have this discussion simply in the language of the market. The market is what has driven a lot of this destruction. We have to have a wider language, and we are not going to have this discussion on the terrain of the oppressor. We are going to have this discussion about rights, we're going to have this discussion about freedom. We're going to have this discussion about what's good for people on the earth.
And when we passed the resolution in the UN for the International Mother Earth Day, there was a discussion on the word Mother Earth. And many governments, many delegations said it is a belief, and we cannot promote in the UN beliefs. We had a very long discussion, and at the end, we were able to show all the delegations, mainly some European delegations, that when we use the term Mother Earth, we are speaking about this relation that we have with our Earth system, that we are all interdependent, that we are all interrelated, and that the Earth system is a living system. And that when we speak about Mother Earth, it's not a concept of the Andean region. It's a concept of relation, as Cormac has said, to your home, to recognize that we're not speaking about a planet. It's your home, and you treat your home with respect. Now, in the UN, we managed to pass that by consensus. It has been adopted. Now, there is a situation that we must also see the other side, is that many victories, advantages that we manage to get at the multilateral level in some way are captured and then transformed into something different. For example, human rights. I'm very surprised in the UN to say, yeah, we are with human rights, but in order to have human rights, we have to promote private investment. How do we get there? And now we have, in order to preserve Mother Earth, we have to promote green economy. And so, those concepts that have come from social movements, civil society, in some way are captured and transformed and used to promote precisely the opposite that is in the base of those concepts. So, when we speak about rights of nature, we presented after the Cochabamba, we went with the draft declaration. They said to us, we can move ahead, but take the word rights out. If you speak about responsibility of humans to Mother Earth, that can be accepted. But in reality, to have the word rights was the key issue. Because in this legal system, only one side has rights. And those rights have been built in order to preserve property rights, private property rights. So I think that the only way that the issue of Mother Earth and this link with the Earth is not going to be in a way destroyed is when we use the two words, rights of Mother Earth or rights of nature. Because to speak about rights means, hey, you're going to confront the whole legal system that is or has been developed in order to preserve the property rights, not of the small ones, but of the big ones. So that is why it's so important, the two words, the rights of nature. Because we are saying we have to have a system where nature has standing, can be legally defended. Because you can adopt any language, very similar, but at the end of the day, the only ones that can sue another one are only big corporations or humans that have enough money to pay attorneys. So that is why the debate is so intense in relation to rights of nature in the UN and why it's so difficult.
I want to say something else about the green economy, and that is when we are talking about nature, and we make the example and the distinction with slaves, for example. It's a big discussion when you're saying, before you will say how many times you could hit a slave, you know, that's environmental legislation. You will say, okay, don't hit it so many times because you're damaging that object because supposedly before they were objects. That's the same thing that we have right now when nature is not a subject of right. When it's an object, we just have environmental legislation that tell us how much harm can we do to an environment. Of course, in that world, responsible mining is something that exists, but in reality, that's not something real. So I think that a green economy is allowing us to say, okay, we should do this with the best technology, we should do this with the least environmental impact. And what rights of nature brings us to discussion is that we need to change the relationship itself. We need to say, maybe we shouldn't be hitting that slave, because not a slave, it's a person. And we need to change that relationship, and it's a whole paradigm shift. And when you start thinking about it then, and I know that Tom will agree with me, it's all this issue that the green economy and what we're discussing here is about the commodification of nature, about carbon offsets, about environmental services, and we keep thinking that nature can be traded. And that's the point that is the point that we need to be changing. So I feel that if the UN is not willing or able to bring this discussion at this level right now, then there's a lot of work for social movements. Because we can definitely unite in this, and I think that the most important part of our movement is that we don't want rights of nature to be like a new thing. We just want this to be completely transversal to every movement. Because for children, for women, for indigenous people, this is something that brings us back together. And I think that the strength needs to come from civil society.
Reminds me of a saying that we have back home in Dakota, some of you know as the Sioux. My mother is Navajo Diné. So I'm of two indigenous tribes in the belly of the beast of the United States of America. But it's Kushi Ina Maka Wichoni Maku. That is, Mother Earth gives me life. Very important concept that we learn. It's included in the expression of our prayer. And when the child is born, the role of the mother, the passing of the water, and also the retaining the afterbirth and having ceremony, putting that back into Mother Earth and burying it, rather than a system that has no understanding of the importance of that incinerates that as medical waste. We are removed as society. Humanity has been removed from nature. That's why there's such a resistance. People do not understand the importance of that relationship. It is about relationship. When we say and conclude our expressions in front of people, we say, "Mitakie Owase." We are all related. But that extends to our relation of animate and inanimate, even a rock. I don't just aimlessly kick a rock. My relationship as I walk on Inamaka, Mother Earth, is a step of appreciation, respect, responsibility, and reverence. So that is what this movement of breaking that kind of like indoctrination of an industrialized mindset that has removed people from nature. That's why we as indigenous people, we need the non-indigenous population to reframe and to relook, because it's their laws, colonial laws, that is killing our people. Thank you. And this Rio+20 must not be a WTO of nature. It must not be the WTO of air, like in the United Nations climate negotiations. Thank you very much.
Just to put this in a context, a practical context of what it looks like, the synergy that is between the green economy and this idea of the economy is driving everything, and environmental laws just being able to hold it back a tiny bit, if that. In California, water rights in law are assigned only to human uses of waterways, and as a result, the waters of the Delta in California, which is a major source of drinking water for most of Californians and an enormously important estuary, those water rights have been allocated for human uses at a level 8 times more than the amount of water that exists. So hopefully everybody doesn't run to the bank at once and cash in, but we're seeing that happen in river after river in California where it's literally being drained dry. And that is what happens under a system that prioritizes the economy. So as a practical matter, and I would urge everybody here to go back, when they go back home, to think about how they can do this in their community and their state and their nation. As a practical matter in California, one thing that we're working on is to prioritize water rights for rivers. Rivers have a right to flow, and to put that in law and to prioritize that, because if we don't take care of the river, we don't take care of ourselves. The economy can't drive anything because it's going to drive us dry. So I urge you all to go back and look at your own communities and try to see how you can make that happen locally, because there's always a way.
Just 2 quick points. When talking of rivers, one of our big movements in India is for the right of the river Ganga to flow free. It's probably one of the most significant ecological movements, but it connects to a spiritual tradition of treating the river as sacred. Now next year, beginning 14th of January, 30 million people will start gathering for what is called the Fair to Creation, called the Kumbh Mela. All it is about is celebrating creation. Every 12 years, people gather on the Ganga. And I think what we need to do in this movement is connect what are existing traditions and name them as part of the rights of Mother Earth, so that we build on the indigenous traditions, on India's sacred traditions, on the Andean community sacred traditions, the traditions of the Amazonian Indians, and just keep adding, so that what is a little catalyst from here actually becomes something to which many strands starts to cohere. In terms of the connection between what we are discussing here and the green economy discussion there, the difference is the color green on this and the color green on this. But the more serious issue is, this Greens want to control this. They're patenting the metabolic pathways of living organisms in the name of more superior technology. And when Pablo was saying that the reason the rights of Mother Earth was struck down again and again by some governments, the language of rights saying it's a belief. This piece of paper is a belief. I promise to pay the bearer. In Greece, they've lost faith in this. They're selling it away because tomorrow the euro might collapse. So this is the belief, that fake innovation is a belief. The idea that there are atoms is a belief. The idea that there are genes in plants is a belief. These are scientific constructs. We create good scientific theories out of constructs. But those are beliefs, there are other beliefs, and it just so happens the belief of a living earth is a more robust belief for making a transition to a livable future, and not the other beliefs that we are being offered for this.